Hey everyone, it's Norm Farrar, aka the Beard Guy here. And in this episode, we're going to be talking about steps for Amazon sellers to comply with updated product liability requirements. We're going to find out what are the updates to the requirements, how long do Amazon sellers have to comply, and what are the options for US and non-US sellers who sell on Amazon.com. Okay, so this is another welcome to Lunch with Norm, the Amazon FBA and e-commerce podcast.
Lunch with Norm, lunch with Norm, lunch with Norm, lunch with Norm.
All right, sorry for the couple of canceled podcasts. We're back to traveling. We got to figure this out. But anyway, we are back today. And as I mentioned, we're going to be talking about steps for Amazon sellers to comply with updated product liability insurance requirement. Our guest today is CEO of Nevada Corp Planners, a company that helps e-commerce sellers launch in their U.S. businesses. He's also, and I remember Scott from years ago, but he also is a CEO of Sales Tax System, a firm that works with startup e-commerce sellers and retailers worldwide to help them efficiently register U.S. tax in U.S. So we're going to be welcoming Scott Letourneau in a couple of moments. But first, let's have a quick word from our sponsor. Meet Sellerize, our favorite suite of tools for Amazon sellers. Leverage 19 innovative tools to dominate your competition on Amazon. Get your customer reviews, rank higher, track and analyze profit in real time. Sellerize is what you need to make data-driven decisions and give your business a boost. Get a free month trial by signing up with a coupon, Beard Nation. Follow the link in this episode's description and get started now. All right, where is my son?
Hello. It feels like it's been forever. Wow.
Virtual hug. I'm
I
coming
know.
out there. Can you feel it?
I'm feeling the love. It's coming strong. But welcome, everyone. Welcome to the show. It's Lunch with Norm. Feel free to smash those like buttons. Give us those thumbs up. I know we've been on a little bit of a hiatus these last 2 days. We've had some traveling, some scheduling issues, just a whole bunch of bad luck.
Kelsey issues.
But we were looking forward to today's episode. If you're new to Lunch with Norm, well, we've got a giveaway for you. We have a giveaway every episode, so tune or stick around for more information about that. And also head over to our Facebook group. That's Lunch with Norm, Amazon FBA, and E-commerce Collective. That's where all the fun happens. That's where you get to be part of the community, part of our lovely Beard Nation, as we like to call it. And I just want to say welcome, Rad, Danon, and Colin to the show. It's good to see everyone. And yeah, we can get started. I don't want to take up too much time and just want to jump right into things.
Okay, well, before we get started, I do see that Colin's on here. Hey, buddy. He started a Give, Send, Go account. It's a crowdsourcing account for people of the Ukraine. So I've donated to it. I think they've raised over $120,000 right now.
Oh.
So the link is there. If you'd like to donate, it's for a great reason. And we'll see what we can do. His target is $1 million. So this is over the last week. Colin's raised $120,000. So atta go. All right. So let's get into this. As I mentioned, any questions or comments, throw them in the comment section. Sit back, relax, grab a cup of coffee, enjoy the show. Welcome, Scott.
Hey, Norm, how you doing today?
My head still looks so big. Let me just go back a little bit further.
I'm in the same boat. We got the same hairstyle, so I see that. Yes.
Yeah. So how's it going?
Everything's great. Thank you. Yes.
We knew each other, or we've talked a few times in the past, and I've always liked what you were doing. And one of the things, I'm from Canada, so one of the I remember you talking on stage a couple times, but the one was during Rapid Crush years back. Sure. And just getting so much information from you, and what I didn't know, and what other people were telling me, like what was real, what wasn't real. And you kind of laid it on the line and you said, it's this. And, it was really clear. So if you've never heard Scott speak, you got to check him out, or check out his site, because he just drops a ton of knowledge. Anyways, I just wanted to get that off my chest.
No, I appreciate it. It was good. I remember back in those days and at the events. And of course, life changes, right? Sales taxes change quite a bit. Now it applies more to Shopify sellers, comes into play. But yeah, it's tough for sellers because there's always, you hear parts and pieces, then to put all those parts and pieces together, and it always doesn't fit in the right puzzle. So I like to reverse engineer and solve those things for folks.
Right. Okay. Well, today let's talk about insurance. Can you make insurance sexy? Can we talk about insurance and still make it sexy?
We'll attempt to do it as possible. I am, here in Las Vegas, so maybe that can add a little glitz and glamour to insurance, and we'll liven it up a little bit. So, and hey, I mean, at the end of the day, the good news for some sellers is a lot of people may not get into compliance, so there may be a little less competition. We'll talk about that. So, it's
Okay.
important.
Well, let's start right at the top. When I go back like this, can you still hear me?
Yeah, you sound good.
All right, good. What are the updates for the insurance requirements for Amazon sellers?
So if we take a step back, there's always been a requirement. They just never really, followed through on it, right? There used to be this insurance requirement. If you had 3 consecutive months of 10,000 sales or more, you're supposed to get insurance. And nobody really did, unless you're probably selling a product that had higher risk, whether it's exercise equipment, children's products, maybe supplements, but usually that came with some kind of insurance already, depending upon who you're using to work with and the manufacturers. So that's always been the case. And then there's a couple lawsuits against Amazon a couple years ago, and they pointed the finger at Amazon, and Amazon said, no, the sellers are responsible. Then the state courts, especially in California, they reversed it and they said, no, Amazon's going to be responsible. And of course, Amazon doesn't like this, so which makes sense. And they said, well, how come we're not, requiring insurance to be, all our sellers to have insurance? And well, we do, we just don't enforce it, is my interpretation of what the internal meetings must have been from this legal area. And so what happened this last August, Amazon rolled out this A to Z guarantee program, which was a step that basically said if you have a claim against you as a third-party seller, they'll cover up to $1,000. So that was step one. Then within that announcement down below, they said, oh, we're also announcing a new Amazon Insurance Accelerator program. And within that program, they announced they're making a change. Now, when you pass $10,000 in sales in 1 month, not 3 consecutive months, you now are required to get general liability insurance. And then there's some bullets about what that included. So this came out in August, and the first email went out to everybody in early September of last year. So a lot of people around September 14th last year got their first notice about this new update and started to scramble and what do we need to do and what's this all about? And that's where it started.
Now, I didn't know that it was changed from the 3 consecutive months to 1 month. So that's interesting. It's not too hard to get $10,000 a month on Amazon.
Sure.
So, okay. So general liability, what exactly do you need to have? What are they saying you need to have? What amount of general liability do you need?
So they want you to have at least $1 million of coverage. It must include product liability coverage. You have to have a plus better rating insurance company to purchase this from, right? And they want to name Amazon.com Services LLC and its affiliates and assignees as additional insured. So obviously Amazon is a big legal department, so they're pretty smart to make sure they cover everything they can.
Right.
So that's the basics of what they wanted everybody to get is this type of policy. And with the insurance accelerator, they the main company they had is Marsh.com, and Marsh was the one that headed up this program with Amazon as the leading insurance company to provide other insurance providers to have options for everybody. So that's what the requirements are going forward, and that's what everybody needs to get done. And so at this point in time, most of the insurance providers that you talk to about Amazon insurance, they kind of know these figures and numbers. Back in September, some of the insurance companies were still fumbling, trying to figure out the exact requirements, and they didn't quite get the certificate of insurance correct, but they've pretty much all figured it out by now.
How long does it normally take when you're talking to an insurance agent? I know this, is how long is a piece of string, but how long does it normally take?
It's a pretty quick process. What happens is you're going to go to them. Some of them just have a simple online website. You fill out a basic form with your product information and your company information, and they'll actually provide you a quote some instantly. So like think of getting car insurance. And so they'll provide an instant quote. Then what happens is once you make the first payment, usually most sellers are paying monthly payments. You can pay annual. There's a little bit of a risk we can talk about in a couple of minutes about paying monthly, but most choose monthly kind of for cash flow purposes in some cases. And usually within 24 hours to 48 hours, they'll issue you a certificate of insurance. Some will do it as fast as within a couple hours. Then we'll talk later about the steps to upload that to Amazon and what happens on that end. So it can all happen in 2 or 3 days. What was slowing down the process initially is a lot of people, rightfully so, had a lot of questions. They would email in questions. And so one of the partners that we work with, they were literally getting 50 calls every hour and 100 emails every couple hours. And they had a form to fill out, but of course, because people had a lot of questions, rightfully so, that slowed up the process. But that's typically not the case now.
Right. Okay. So that's good. And as you mentioned earlier, if you're brand new to Amazon, you don't have to have it in place until you hit that $10,000 mark. But if you're getting sales, especially if it's a topical or if it's something your pet's eating or something like that, it's always good to have it in place before you start selling. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's interesting because of the hundreds of people we've talked to on this. There's two groups, and probably 95% are in the group of they weren't planning to get insurance. They never wanted to get insurance. It's another expense, but it's a requirement by Amazon to keep their account active. So they're going to do whatever it takes. So they're going to do that. There's a small group of people that realize product liability. I remember talking to one merger and acquisition specialist in the UK, and he was one of the few people that was getting into the baby niche. And he goes, I know liability. I want insurance before I start this company. I want to know I'm covered. And so that's more the exception. But we've started to see more and more people that look at this and say that I really do need insurance. And I agree with you, Norm. 10,000 is a small number in Amazon, but it does impact if you're in supplement sales or something where there's probably some more costs involved. It's easy to get to 10,000, but people are going to find out that some of those niches, the insurance costs can start to get to $2,000 or $3,000 a year versus $500 to $600 a year. So if you are in those niches that have more risk, like the baby niche, supplements, or exercise equipment, something with batteries in, or something that would have more liability. For a new seller, you just have to be aware of the cost. Now we'll talk about time frame in a few minutes because that's kind of been a moving target going along, and what happens if you don't get in compliance, which is certainly important.
I'm kind of curious. So let's say that you went through, you sold your business, and you've got an earnout. Okay. Now,
Sure.
all of a sudden, there is a claim that happened. People because you didn't have insurance. And for some reason, whoever bought them, didn't do their due diligence. They found out that they didn't know that there was no insurance. Now they have a lawsuit against them, or they have a problem with with an insurance claim. Now that can come back and still bite the original owners, can't it?
Yeah, it's a really good point, and it's something that maybe is that on the checklist of the aggregators, right, that are going through this process. But yeah, if you're selling your company and it was your customer, your client, you did the sale, odds are that in a typical situation, the liability would come back to you, to your company, because that was your customer, your product, your sale. Whether or not the customer, because you sold your business, and this is a little bit of a side note, but it's all about liability. I see a lot of people, Norm, that they have a company, they sold their business, and they're like, okay, I sold my business, I don't need my company, so I'll dissolve my company, or and I see that a lot in the US. And that's really a big mistake, because you got to look at the statutory requirements, because a lot of time when you dissolve the company, you become personally liable for up to 2 years as the trustee of the company. I always tell people, keep it open for 2 years. I don't care if you file returns with no activity, wait till the smoke clears on liabilities, because a lot of people make that mistake. So, but I agree with you, coming back full circle to the insurance component of it, that that certainly could be an issue. And if you are buying a company, I would want to know that. Maybe that might help in negotiating if you bought one that didn't have insurance for several years and they're going to say it wasn't required. But still, that could be a slight risk. Whereas we know in lawsuits and litigation, it's all about going after deep pockets and pointing the finger. In the US, unlike other countries, we're very good about blaming anybody who has money. And some of that actually sticks, even though it shouldn't stick in a legal court of law. So you always have to be extra careful.
Right. Now, that's an excellent point. So there's a nugget already there. I hate the word nugget, but there's already a nugget, keeping your company open for at least 2 years and just filing that negative return. But okay, now what about, how long does it take? How long are they giving us to get into compliance?
So it's interesting, as I mentioned, it's a little bit of a moving target. And when I spoke to Marsh, what it was supposed to be is a 90-day window to get in compliance when they sent their first email out in September. And what Amazon did was they sent the first email and said you had 30 days for compliance. And so that was not part of the plan. And the guess is the psychology was, if we give people 90 days, they're probably going to wait till day 89 to go take a look at this, right? So let's give them 30 days. Maybe we'll get some people into compliance. Then they waited another 15 business days, and they sent the second email, and then they sent the third email. So overall, the goal is you're supposed to get in compliance within 90 days. The email in the outline will say after 60 days, potentially they could withhold your funds and distributions if you're not in compliance. And after 90 days, your account could be potentially suspended. They don't quite say suspended. They say you have to be in compliance within 90 days. So there was a pattern early on of the emails going out September, end of October, beginning of December. And we've noticed now that they've started to compress them, not waiting. They're sending them even before the next 30 days is up.
Right.
So in general, let's say everybody has 90 days. You probably want to get in compliance within 60 days. So nothing's happening to your funds in your account.
Okay. So I almost forgot, but we do have a giveaway today. We do have a Wheel of Kelsey. Scott, can you give us a little bit of information about the giveaway?
Yeah. So what I'm going to do is for one of you today, I'm going to do a 30-minute strategy session on, it can be anything around this subject. Could be sales tax, could be a U.S. entity structuring. And as you know, I can go very fast and cover a lot of information very quickly. So within 30 minutes, whether you've already gone down the path of forming a U.S. company, or you're behind on sales tax compliance and you want a second opinion on something, or maybe you're told not to file tax returns or something, or or you're not sure how to get into compliance with your insurance, or you're getting 3 different answers, which happens, I can clarify that very quickly in 30 minutes. So normally it's a $297 $297 is my fee to do a 30-minute strategy call. So this will be our free giveaway for today. So looking forward to speaking to the lucky winner and helping you clarify a few things. Because at the end of the day, once you get clarity on these things, it really, you get more confidence, Norm. And this is kind of the ripple effect that I think is really important with people's businesses, that the more certainty you can have in certain areas, and it just helps you do everything better. But if there's a main area that at night you're thinking about that keeps you up and you're like, I'm not sure if I'm doing that right, that's not good. So if I can help you eliminate that and have more confidence going forward, I think that'll make a big difference in your business.
That's a great giveaway. So if you are interested in this giveaway, it's hashtag Wheel of Kelsey. Tag 2 people and you'll get a second entry. The other thing is, if you're, whether you, well, we're going to add a free month of the Centurion League. If you're already a member, sorry, but we'll draw again for somebody who's not. How's that? So we'll add to, we'll sweeten up the pie a little bit. And I guess, Kelsey, I'll warn you this because, you know, I know you lack in these resources, but put your finger on that button and let's hit the sponsor thing. Now, a big thank you to our sponsor, Startup Club, the largest club on Clubhouse with over 790,000 members and growing. They're one of the world's largest communities supporting the startup ecosystem, from founders to those wishing to work for a startup and everything in between. You can find them at www.startup.club for blogs, recordings, and a calendar of upcoming shows, and on the Clubhouse app. Just search Startup Club for daily shows 24/7. You can also now listen to their show, the Serial Entrepreneur Club podcast, on Apple and Spotify too. Stop by to connect, learn, and grow together. Okay. Now, I mentioned this at the beginning. World is crazy right now, and I wanted to just let you know about that. The the crowdsourcing fund that Kelsey's going to be posting. It's Give Send Go /for Ukraine. And so far in a week, it's raised over 120,000. Their goal is $1 million. And if you're interested, just please go to that site. Okay, let's get back and talk about the U.S. and non-U.S. sellers. So what's the difference for each with regard to compliance?
So for U.S. sellers, it's a lot easier because you're in the U.S. There's more options for U.S. insurance. All the Amazon insurance accelerator companies are U.S.-based companies. And so it's very simple. You already either sell as an individual, sole proprietorship, you have a company. There's really no extra steps you have to do other than just to reach out and fill out the application, get a price quote, and we'll talk about differences in price quotes. Remind me to bring that up because that's important. And then you just go through the process and upload the certificate to get approved, and we'll comment on that in a moment or two. But so it's very straightforward for U.S. sellers. I think the important thing for sellers to keep in mind is the emails you get from Amazon all look the same. And so I've had some people I've talked to and said, well, I said, when did you get your first notice? Oh, I just got it 30 days ago. I go, are you sure? Have you searched the subject and checked your junk folder? And they'll find out it's actually their third notice because it only has one different word. It'll say like follow up in the first sentence or two.
Oh,
so you gotta pay attention to and really check, is it your first, second, or third notice or fourth notice? And you're getting close to, your account could go offline at some point in time. So, but for U.S. sellers, much easier. No reason why U.S. sellers shouldn't get in compliance. There's no reason to really push the window. Again, you can get monthly payments. If you're a newer seller and you're in the high risk category and you got a bigger price quote that's a few $1,000s, and that's kind of a budget squeeze. Well, you can pay monthly. And Norm, it's really important that everybody understands this. It like any insurance, it's okay to get a couple different quotes. And you might be thinking that, well, Scott, it can't be that difficult. There's only a few criteria. Why would, $10 here, what's the big deal? I'll give you an example, extreme example of a quote. We had I was talking to one of our insurance providers, and one of the sellers was selling trampolines. Now, when you think of the height of liability, you think of a trampoline, kids bouncing up. I remember I have a cabin in Wisconsin, and they used to have one that didn't have a net on. I used to always cringe. It's like, this is like a liability disaster waiting to happen, right? So one seller got a quote for close to $50,000 for coverage. And they went to another provider, one of the accelerator companies, and they got a quote for under $1,300. Now, that's an extreme example. I'm going to tell you why that probably happened and what we've noticed is happening. So most are, products are being manufactured in China, right? So on the insurance policy, if it's really complete coverage, by talking to the underwriters, you, the seller, should be named as the manufacturer in the insurance policy, because they're not going to go chase somebody in China. So that moves up the insurance rate in some cases. Now, in most cases, it might be, you might get something that's, I got a quote for $3,500 over here, and over here they're saying it's $1,200. And we've noticed that some of the insurance providers aren't adding that element. And it doesn't mean you won't be covered. It doesn't mean that Amazon's not accepting the certificate of insurance. But push comes to shove, if there was a real claim, and if you know anything about, within insurance industry, I've spoken to different subjects on this about liability. If you have an insurance policy for $1 million, you have a claim for $2,500. Pretty much, you fill out a form, they're going to write a check, and your rates will probably go up. If you have a claim for $900,000 out of $1 million, they ask a lot of questions. Their attorneys get involved. They want to know you covered, dotted all the I's, crossed all the T's, and they're looking for an opportunity not to write a check. And I say there's a reason Warren Buffett owns insurance companies, and that's because they're profitable. So with all that being said, it's a fairly simple process, but feel free to, get a couple different price quotes. But at the end of the day, if you want to make sure you're protected properly, and there are some people out there to say, I just don't want to pay all this money and find out there's, maybe if push came to shove, I don't have great protection. We work with wellinsurance.com, who has worked with e-commerce sellers for many years. Matt's a great guy, and they do it 100% correct. So it's the accurate insurance quote for what your situation is if you had a claim. But I know, again, there's some sellers that, when we talk to non-residents, I talk to people in Bangladesh and stuff, they're doing $100,000 a year, $60,000 a year. And it's very difficult for these folks, and they just want to get something Amazons will accept to keep their account open. And that's kind of a different subject, right?
Right. Yeah. What are some of the, thank you. What are some of the things that you gotta have in your insurance that might not be in there when you're getting it written up? Are there any clauses that just have to be there?
Well, for example, what was happening early on in I would say September, October, a lot of people were getting certificates of insurance and they were getting rejected. So they'd upload it to Amazon, they get rejected. And there's a couple of reasons they were getting rejected. One was the legal name on your Amazon account has to match the name on the insurance policy. And the address on your Amazon account has to match the address. And it sounds simple, but as you know, with Amazon, if the suite number, the address, something, there's a misspelling, it's going to get rejected. The other part was the insurance companies couldn't figure out where to name Amazon as the additional insured on the certificate of insurance. So I had one client that used Hiscox, and he had 3 certificates of insurance. All 3 got rejected. And he sent them to me, and each one had, this part was in the right place, but this part was in the wrong, but this one was. So I sent him exactly, go tell him to move this here and put this here and put this here, and it got approved. So that's the front end of it as far as getting approved. Now, again, the back end, as far as protection, it's pretty straightforward as far as the $1 million in coverage and what's named. Again, the biggest part that you may want to ask your insurance provider, if you want really full coverage, is, am I named as the manufacturer? Does my policy include coverage for that, or is that not part of it? So that's an area that is the differences. Now, again, in life, it could be very possible that in the insurance quotes that some companies don't know how to quote, multiple products, and they might be picking one product basing your quote on not your other products. So that's another variable that comes into play versus what's my product with most liability versus the least, because they're supposed to look at all the products and come up with an overall quote. They're not issuing you, 72 different policies based upon all your products. So there are some variables from that point of view. Again, the main point is there's 2 different ways to look at this. One is, what's the minimum steps to protect my Amazon account to make sure the certificate of insurance is accepted and moving forward. Number 2 is, in the bigger picture, if you are really concerned about liability, because let's be honest, probably 95% of sellers prior to this didn't have any insurance, so they never thought it was an issue. And in the US, if we're really honest about it, my wife buys stuff from Amazon every day. Maybe we average 1 to 3 packages a day that come to our house. So the thought has never occurred to us, and I understand liability, and we have a lot of class action attorneys in the US, but the thought's never occurred to us that, hey, let's go, here's the slightly defective product. Let's go find all the reviews, and some class action attorney contacts everybody, and let's go have a big lawsuit. That hasn't happened yet, and I don't foresee anything like that coming anytime soon. So we could assume the risk is low. So there's getting approval for Amazon, and then maybe double checking if you're a very conservative type and you have like umbrella policies and lots of insurance, you probably want to ask a couple of additional questions to make sure you're properly covered. Most people are just excited if they got a quote for $2,500 and this person's only $800. Good, I'll take the $800. Amazon accepted it. Ooh, I'm good to go. Let's move on, right?
Yeah. I definitely can see that happening.
Yeah.
All right. One of the other things. Oh, and by the way, if anybody listening has any questions about insurance, please post them and we will get to them before the end of the episode. One of the things I think is very important too, reporting the proper revenue. So you're going to be asked, and you may think as a seller that, oh, I'll just report that I'm doing $10,000 a month when you're doing $100,000 a month. And that could be a big problem. So do you want to talk about that?
Yeah. So it's very important to, obviously, insurance to be accurate. 'Cause remember what I said earlier, if you do have a big claim, they're always looking for an opportunity to not to write a check or send you money. So it's important to, when they ask for annual sales or monthly sales, to give accurate numbers so you get an accurate quote, to list the products you have accurately. This is all part of getting a proper quote. And a lot of people ask, if I add products, how does this change? Most of the insurance companies are looking at it on an annual basis. So on a renewal basis, your sales have probably changed. Hopefully they're going to be going up by 20% or more, right? So there's going to be some updates to your number and coverage. And some insurance companies, we know from life, they just send you an automatic renewal. So, and sometimes it's your responsibility, and you wouldn't think so, to be proactive and say, hey, my sales have changed, my product mix has changed. Does that impact my policy? So those are some things that I would keep in mind. And then we should also, I didn't cover non-residents, so we should probably circle back in a minute because that's a little more complicated. But
okay.
to answer that. So it's a very good point that, Norm, that you want to be accurate on your actual sales numbers. You don't want to lowball something. And at the end of the day, it's as far as your premium, it'll probably impact it very minor. I mean, if you're really doing 5 million a year and you're saying you're doing 500,000, obviously that's a significant difference. So I'm always a fan of being honest and accurate on these things. So you get the appropriate quote, then check different quotes. And if it's really different, you might want to ask questions to find out what's different, if that's really important to you, to make sure you have the right coverage. If, again, you're just interested in how do I ring the bell to get Amazon to give me, I'm verified and move on with selling, that's kind of a little slightly different subject.
And you were saying at the very beginning, something that kind of it keeps you awake at night, or you got that little gut check, when you're trying to go to sleep. This would be one for me. Because if I'm doing a 500,000, or if I'm doing, 5 million and I've reported 500,000, that would always be playing in the back of my head that if something ever happened, and because I'm moving that volume, well, you better have a pretty good risk tolerance.
Yeah, you have to, and that's the key word, risk tolerance. Hey, when you're 21 and you're single and no kids and overhead, your risk tolerance is a lot different than when you're probably our age and you got a family and this and responsibilities, and you're growing a business and you have this brand you're growing. These are things that real companies do. They check these boxes. They make sure that they are in compliance with these things. And again, everybody's different on what they can tolerate as far as sleeping well at night. And if you have a lower risk tolerance, no different than estate planning, and there's no living will or trust or life insurance and you're a certain age, there's a certain risk tolerance. Some people, for me, I'm risk adverse. Partly I'm in the industry, but I'm a little more conservative to begin with. So I usually have extra things and extra layers of protection and this, and I'm not overly concerned about the extra few $100s a month I'm going to pay in it. I'd rather, that's just one thing I don't have to worry about. So I think it's very important. Everybody's going to be slightly different as far as their risk tolerance, but I think it's something you want to look at. And again, if your real goal is to grow a brand, and especially if you want to, sell it at some point, it's nice to act accordingly as a real business and a company that would have these things checked off. And this is an important area, of course.
You also mentioned earlier on about the difference between paying monthly and paying annually. You want to dig into that a bit?
Yeah, sure. Let me do that. Then we'll chat about the non-residents, because that's the
Oh,
one
right.
having difficulties. But we'll
Okay.
do that first. But so it doesn't sound like a big deal, but when you get the insurance quote, you can write an annual check or pay monthly, right? And so the first thought comes to mind is from a cash flow point of view. And, if you're doing 5 million sales, you're not too concerned about, $2,500, dollars, and you might pay the entire year. But what happens is, especially for non-residents, is, if they're making monthly payments and it's on a credit card or a debit card, and the credit card expires and they don't make a payment and it's 30 days late, the insurance companies have a responsibility to report this to Amazon. Now, whether they do that or not, or how proactive they are, or if they give you 60 days or 90 days, but we work with a lot of non-resident sellers. We see them when they send new debit cards to our office and we ship it off to them. And so these things expire. So sometimes it's more efficient to say, why would I run that risk of, again, this being, of all things with Amazon, like this thing is what caused my account to be suspended. So if you want to just make an annual payment, that eliminates one less thing that could go wrong with your, credit card changed, expired, got, some fraud on it, which we all do that these days. It's kind of like a common occurrence. And I get that with clients, that any type of continuity income, they're often changing cards because of, expiration dates and things change. So that's a minor thing there. In regards to non-residents, so here's the challenge that non-residents have, and this hasn't worked very smoothly. Again, as we started, we talked about, Marsh is the one that had this big opportunity with Amazon, and their job was to coordinate in other countries throughout the world with other insurance providers to be partners, right, to offer insurance for Amazon sellers. So in Australia, the UK, all countries around the world, right? And so what happened was, when they reached out to some of the countries, you go to Australia and say, hey, we have 100,000 sellers that need insurance. Who wants to provide insurance and have 100,000 new customers? You think that would be they'd be all excited and be a frenzy to fight over this chunk of business, right? Well, the challenge was that, they asked them to give a minor discount, no big deal. But then they started getting into, well, what exactly are we insuring? Well, it's people selling products in the US. And then they started to, well, tell me more about that, because they actually sue people in the US. So that's a little different than my country. And then you started getting into high risk products. And they said, forget high risk products. We're not touching that. But on the other side, yeah, we'll do some of that. So what happened was this originally was rolled out for US and Chinese sellers, and they had solutions. In my opinion, what they should have done is had the insurance in place and then notified each person in that country so they could go to their provider. So a lot of non-residents, even in Australia, what they would notice is they'd go to the Australian provider and they would find out that the rates were 40-50% higher than US insurance rates. Because what some people would do is just plug in an address in some of these forms and just put in their product information as if they were a US company to get a quote, right? And they were seeing, oh, it's $1,200 here, but it's $3,800 over here. And so that was one minor challenge. The biggest challenge is most people in countries, I've had clients from Saudi Arabia, South Africa, Bangladesh, nobody's offering insurance. And even several countries in the EU, not the UK, there's some providers there. But in a lot of countries, they would go to their local insurance provider and you imagine they're trying to explain this. I'm selling this, it's in the US, it's on Amazon. Will you insure me in the US? They're like, no, we don't do that. Are you kidding? We have zero interest in doing that. So unfortunately, the option for them, they would call the US providers, right? They would call the accelerator companies, and they would say, we can only insure you if you're a US company. Well, they're a foreign individual, a foreign company. They're not a US company. So then it came to the thought, well, if you form a US company, then you can get US insurance. Then you can imagine a little bit of the rabbit hole that goes down. And so that's where a lot came into play with Well Insurance and going through the process of how do we help the non-residents set up, and we work with tax attorneys and CPAs about everything that has to do with different tax treaties and things. And what are it's like in life, you take one step forward, 3 steps backwards. So, okay, now I get the insurance, but what are the consequences of that? And what does that impact in my business? And what does that change? So it's been unfortunate for non-residents because they really haven't had the easy options that the US sellers do, or even Canadian sellers and things of that nature. So that's where we've helped a lot of people. Most of our clients have come from non-resident sellers navigate through these pluses or minuses, and then what needs to happen to get this approved by Amazon. What are their different levels of verification that could possibly happen initially and later on down the line. So that's where it gets a little more complicated for non-resident sellers versus US sellers that honestly have it quite easy.
So your company helps non-residents get insurance?
Yeah. So what we do, we're partnered with with an insurance company. We work with Well Insurance. It's well-insurance.com. And Matt Lovell has been in this field for many years. And so he refers a lot of people to us, and they come to us first. He'll say, in order for me to get you insurance, go to Scott's company first. They'll go through all the things, not just the US company, but what happens on Amazon after, what are the tax consequences with the partners and resources. Then we go through that part first. Then they go back to Matt. Then they upload the certificate of insurance on their account and they move forward.
Got it. Okay. Now let's talk a bit about mistake other than not having insurance. What are some of the mistakes sellers are making?
Some of the mistakes they're making is the simple one is they're just ignoring the notices. And so, as we mentioned, we talked about 90 days overall. So I was expecting in late January to see a frenzy of accounts being suspended, watching, the Facebook groups and the Amazon, forums closely. And we haven't seen that yet. What we're seeing is people are getting notices every couple of weeks. And so to me, that tells me a couple things, that Amazon's having a little bit of an issue, that maybe they thought more people would have gotten in compliance. They have their own business model decision. Do we lop off potentially 10, 15% of our sellers that aren't in compliance? And mostly this would probably be non-residents. The only reason a US seller would probably not be in compliance is they honestly just missed the email, or they saw it and they just didn't pay attention and life got busy. So, but for the non-resident sellers, they're aware of it. It's an issue. There's a lot of sellers that, as you know, do under 100,000 or less a year in sales. So those folks, it's really a financial thing. And then they're hanging on to say, well, maybe they won't really do anything, and they'll continue, because what we've been telling sellers is, hopefully those who have set up U.S. entities, who walk through that process, they don't want the additional expense for that. But in a lot of cases, with what we do in the lower insurance costs, it's still less money than them getting insurance in their home country. But we have to look at the whole picture. So I think the timing, taking the notices seriously, even though they've been sending out more notices. And so eventually what's going to happen is they're either going to make some adjustments to the insurance requirements, which that's going to be difficult, or they're going to have to start suspending some folks, because otherwise, if you cry wolf too often, nobody pays attention to it and they just go on. So I think they're kind of stuck a little bit, because we're going on 6 months for some sellers have been getting notices.
Right. And the other thing about the insurance that I think we should talk about, you have to look at the other retailers or e-tailers. Some of them, like if you take a look at Chewy, they want a lot more than $1 million. So when you're getting quoted, make sure if you do expand, or if you're planning to expand into the Walmarts or into the Chewies of the world, if you're in the pet industry, you better know, you could always upgrade it later, but
Sure,
they're demanding a lot higher, and they want proof.
and that's a really good point, Norm, because you're right. You got to anticipate where you're going. Each marketplace has their own either not required, suggested required, higher requirements. And as you mentioned, you are able to go to a provider and, hey, I need more coverage, because this certificate of insurance that says Amazon on it probably isn't going to, may not be the one that they want, although that probably shouldn't impact it as an additional insured. But you're going to need some more coverage, so you're going to have to, your premium's going to go up. So that's a really good point to anticipate that, and it would make sense for marketplaces and different companies that in our litigious society and the uncertainty in the world of financial markets and all this and inflation doesn't make any of this any better. It makes it a little bit worse, because when people get desperate and they want to point fingers, and that becomes a challenge. So you want to take this seriously, and I think that's a really good point.
So let's say you mess up, you ignore all the emails that have come in, and all of a sudden Amazon plays a little bit of hardball. What do? Do you just go out there and try to get insurance at that point? Because you could jeopardize your account. Like you said, I haven't heard of a lot of people being suspended, but
yeah,
I mean, that's what the threat is.
Correct.
What do you think the best action steps would be to help correct? You're already down the rabbit hole.
Yeah. So, and you're right. We haven't seen it yet either, of people being suspended. And people have attempted to reach out to email Amazon, which, as you know, is usually fruitless in many situations. Nothing wrong with putting them on notice that, hey, I'm in this country. I've checked for multiple providers. I've checked with your provider, and there's no solutions here. So I'm working on it. So it kind of puts them on notice. You have something in writing. But at the end of the day is you're going to be in a position that if you do get suspended, worst case scenario, and I've had this questions, well, people are trying to anticipate what happens if I get suspended. Can I get insurance the next day, then upload it and I'm good to go? Well, we don't know is once you get suspended, is that in a different bucket for this particular issue? And the response time is going to be, you can't get all this done in a day. It may take at least 5 to 10 business days. That's really fast for us. We attempt not to overpromise. And some people hear, oh, I need a U.S. company, I can do that in 24 hours. Well, that's one of the pieces. But to get everything and get it ready, we're talking at least a minimum of 2 business weeks to get this accomplished from start to finish. So you have to keep that in mind if there was a non-resident trying to get insurance, right? So, but we don't know once you upload the certificate of insurance. Right now, when you upload the certificate of insurance, it's typically approved within 2 to 24 hours. But I can't tell you that if you're suspended and you uploaded it, it's going to be the same time frame, or is that going to be a manual review and it's 2 weeks later?
Right. Yeah. So I guess we just sit and wait, but try not to get into that position.
Yeah, that would be ideal, right?
Yeah. Okay, Scott, how do people get a hold of you?
Yeah, the best way, you can go to our website. We have a lot of great content. Looks like Nevada Inc., nvinc.com. And on there, you'll see a button to book a call. And you can book a call, and then it's a free call where I do these calls, and we'll get on and I'll attempt to understand your situation. Where are you at? What are you trying to accomplish? Because everybody has different variables, and I'm not a fan of cookie cutter, because that usually leads to problems. So sometimes people, well, I'm also selling a Shopify. Oh, by the way, I want to get a Walmart. How does that change it? Well, all these things change things, right? So the goal is to get my hands around the situation. What are you trying to accomplish? What's the time frame? Then we can say, okay, here's the options to help you out. Some people have done parts and pieces. I do strategy calls like the one we're giving away today. So a lot of times the solution is a strategy call to kind of break down step by step what they've done, what do they need to fix it, and how do they move forward. Or it could be a strategy call before we form a U.S. entity. And the good news with our strategy calls is currently they apply as a full credit towards their services. So we have one that's 45 minutes where I do an email assessment of step by step what to do. That's $397. That applies as a full credit. So you can go to the website. It's a great place to start. nvinc.com. We have some great articles about Amazon, Walmart, Shopify, U.S. taxation entities. We have a blog with a video on this, on the insurance things. So we cover all of this. So there's a great foundation there, which will help you probably get in a position to ask better questions, because the challenge in life, Norm, is that I find that a lot of people are getting the right answer to the wrong question. So and let's be honest, the challenge, we're educating ourselves by what's online. And a lot of times we're just not asking the right questions or a deeper question, and we're just answering the surface question. So we have a whole article about playing chess and strategically the moves. And so that's what we're attempting to elicit is you're thinking 1 or 2 moves ahead. We're thinking 5 moves ahead, because we don't want to penalize you for, oh, you didn't ask that question. That's kind of our responsibility to get that from you and to bring up things you're not even thinking about, you haven't considered. And if you're going down the wrong pathway, we'll tell you what we foresee in the future that you don't see yet, and why that may be, again, as I said earlier, 1 step forward and 3 steps backwards. So, and we know everybody likes it to be simple, and I get that. I like things to be like that. We just want to make sure that, if you're building this multi-million-dollar brand, that there's things to anticipate. And some people, if you want the Band-Aid solution, we can tell you the Band-Aid solution, but we will emphasize this is the Band-Aid solution. We'll tell you what could go wrong with that solution. And then that's your choice. So we like to be very upfront and frank about that, because and we really like to avoid over promising on time frame and what's going to happen. And sometimes, we lose business because of somebody else says they can do it faster, but we like to be accurate on how all these steps work. And we're very efficient. We have a great team. We have great systems, but we like to be accurate on it. So everybody has a good experience.
Right. Okay. So I know Kelsey's going to be putting that link in for your Calendly. This is for your Amazon Insurance diagnostic call. And then in a couple of moments, this is the last call. If you're interested in consultation with Scott, 30-minute consultation, it's a value of $297. It's hashtag Wheel of Kelsey, tag 2 people, and you will get an extra entry. We'll start this in just a couple of seconds. Anyways, and by the way, I know anybody who's a regular listener, they know that none of this is affiliate based. Okay. We're talking to Scott today because he's good at what he does, and we're not making any money off of this whatsoever. So check it out if you're interested. And we're also going to be adding a 1 month free Centurion League, as long as you're not a member of the Centurion League already. So Kelsey, let's take a word from our sponsor, then we'll do the Wheel of Kelsey. As you know, at Lunch with Norm, bigger is always better. Bigger business, bigger profits, and yes, bigger lunches. Z wants to make sure that your business and profits are bigger by taking you and your business international. They are a one-stop importer of record shop, including compliance and logistics services. They focus on all the elements involved in a smooth first-time custom clearance so that you can focus on what you're good at, selling. Click on the screen now or follow the link in the description box below and get 50% off your first shipment today. Okay. Now, where is the boy wonder?
All right. So time for the Wheel of Kelsey. Here we go. Enjoy.
It's time for the Wheel of Kelsey.
All right. Now, I did change up the Wheel of Kelsey a little bit. I'm still working on it. Apparently, all my cookies got cleared out, so I had to improvise.
I'd say
change up the colors. So we're gonna shuffle these up, and we're going to spin the wheel. So if you are the winner, please reach me at k@lunchwithnorm.com. And it looks like the winner is Brian.
All right. Congrats, Brian.
Awesome. All right, Brian. Look forward to speaking with you.
All right, so I'll forward that link over to you, Brian. Brian, I already have your information, so that's perfect. Be nice and easy. And thank you, everyone, again for entering the Wheel of Kelsey.
Is that what we're calling it, the Wheel of Kelsey, even though it's all messed up like that? It's like the Wheel of Spaghetti
Artistic
or something. Huh? Okay. Anyways, Scott, you are off the hook. Thank you for coming on the show today, and we'll be seeing you in Vegas at the Prosper Show in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, it sounds great. I'll be there. It'll be great to connect and meet a lot of other great sellers, and a lot of good friends will be there.
All right. Thanks again, Scott, for coming on, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Norm. Appreciate
All right.
it.
See you later. All right. So I hope you enjoyed that. There was a lot of information in this episode that I learned about insurance as well. So I thought I knew a lot, but Scott always delivers. Like I said, yeah, there'll be nuggets, and there were. So if you were listening through the whole episode, great. If not, listen to it again, because there are things that can save your butt and save you money. Okay. So Kels, you coming back on?
I am. Hello. I am just currently adding your Prosper link so people can get it.
All right. So yes, if anybody is going to Prosper, let us know. Love to meet up with you. Kelsey and I both will be there, and yeah, happy to meet up. There's going to be lots of pre and post parties as well. Kelsey won't be able to attend those though. He's not of age.
All right. Okay. All right.
Yeah, you'll have to sit in a hotel room. Okay.
Drink my your
lemonade. Okay. So that's it.
That's it. All right.
Finish us off.
thank you everyone for watching. Like I said, it's good to be back. We were off for a couple days, and
because of Kelsey.
You sure? So next week we're back to regular schedule, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 12 p.m. Eastern time. So I think the events are already up on Facebook and YouTube, so check those out. You can find us on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, and don't forget to RSVP to these events so you get the notifications, and follow us on social media. Norm's got a great Instagram too for lots of tips and advice. I think you just hit 1,900 followers.
Yay.
So congratulations. So if you have any questions about today's episode or questions in general, you can head over to our Facebook group, Lunch with Norm, Amazon FBA and E-commerce Collective. That's where all the good stuff happens. And if you're interested in going to Prosper and you haven't booked your ticket yet, you can use this link here that I posted in the comment sections for more.
I think that gets you $100 off as well.
Yeah, I think so. All right, I think that's it.
Okay, so one last thing, Kelsey, if you could post that that link for any donations to the Ukraine, that would be fantastic. And also, a last thing, if you are interested in a bit of a laugh, check out Kelsey's TikTok. Well, it is called Lunch with Norm, but it has nothing to do. You won't see my face on there, I don't think. It's all Kelsey. It's hilarious. Check it out. It's a lot of fun. All right, everybody. Thanks a lot. Join us every Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays when Kelsey's doing his job at noon Eastern Standard Time. And thank you again for being part of this community. We really couldn't do this without you. Our group is growing all the time. We love it. And we'll see you next time. See you later.
Lunch with Norm.